sure. Okay. Working? Well, hello and welcome, folks, to another amazing Thursday night in the world of wise guys and ties and real estate investing. That is what we're going to be talking about tonight. And more specifically, we're going to be answering some very common questions. If you don't know me, my name is Ray Fleming. I am one of the co-founders, along with Mr. Joseph Smith, of the Wise Guys and Ties, who specialize in helping businesses build and grow their business credit and gain access to capital. We also help people with their massive debt figure out how to reduce that in 1/3 of the time. And then what do you do after you get out of your debt? Invest into real estate, build for that future, build for that wealth. And so lately, we've been talking to a lot of different clients and folks about how they want to get into real estate investing. And we talk each and every Thursday night about real estate investing. But I wanted to come to you tonight and answer some questions that we've been getting. Now, anytime during this, feel free in the chat box, if you're on YouTube, throw in some of your questions. This is really an open forum. This is an opportunity. I, in no way, shape, or form, feel like I know everything. Actually, the more I know, the less I feel like I actually know. But if I do have some idea on how we could go about solving your problem, answering your question, I will do it. And if I can't answer it, then I will make sure I get the answer and bring it to you next time. So that is what we are going to be working at tonight in our real estate investing Q&A. And I want to thank you, everybody who's live with us in the Zoom webinar as well. We're also broadcasting through Zoom, so you can always gain access to our Zoom webinars by going over to wiseguysandties.com under the Events tab. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and start with the question that I've been getting a lot lately. And that really comes down to, do I actually need some type of company when investing in real estate? If I want to go out and flip a house, do I really need a business? I actually get this quite a bit. And the truth is, no, you actually don't. You could actually do a lot of things. You could ride on the hood of a car going down the freeway. You could, try to surf off of the back of a vehicle. I don't recommend those things because they're dangerous and somebody's liable to end up in trouble. And so the thing is, if you're going to be out there and you're going to be serious about real estate investing, remember, we're dealing with one of the largest assets that people will ever own in their life. And you definitely want to have some type of business. So let's say that this is, whoops, that marker doesn't work. All right, so we got you versus a business. I typically like to draw businesses in rectangles or squares or circles, it just depends. But let's talk about you investing in real estate versus a business. And let me make sure that we can see everybody on YouTube as well, because we want to make sure that we're able to answer any and every question that is coming in. Okay, so, whoa. Mute that out. Okay, so let's say that you want to go out and flip a house, because we'll talk about several different avenues, but the first one is flipping. Well, if you go out and as an individual person, go and flip a property, that is actually the most expensive way to do it. Because typically, if we're looking at flipping a property, we're going to want to have that in our hands and out of our hands within a year. Don't usually want to carry it longer than that. Now, the thing is, there is a difference if you have been holding real estate for under a year versus over a year. That's kind of that threshold of, is this short-term gains or is this long-term? And it really goes into the tax filings and the capital gains status of that money. So let's say that you go out there and you flip a house and make $50,000. Little disclaimer, I am in no way, shape, or form a CPA or an accountant. I do not have time for that. That's why we hire them. But what my accountant will help me understand is that if we make $50,000, a significant amount of that is going to go to the IRS. And the thing is, they won't tell you that right away. It will be later on once you file your taxes. The other benefits to having your real estate projects within a LLC or some type of legal structure is the liability protection. Just flat out the liability. Because if something were to happen in that, the business itself can take the blow. And you know, as an individual, let's say that something happens in that property and you're not properly insured. Or you sell it off and then there's some massive problem that comes back and they want to sue you. Well, they're going to attack you personally. If there is something that happens in the house, you're personally liable for that. That's why we want to move it over to a business. We want to do this in our LLC, or this is some type of corporation. This could be a C Corp, this could be an S Corp. And that really just kind of depends on where you're at, how much you're making, what state you're in, because each situation is unique. But I would say for the most part, any real estate that you're going to be doing right out the bat is going to be an LLC, or an LLC that files as an S Corp, or you might just move straight to a S Corp. Okay, so flips. We've talked about a lot of these things. This pertains to any real estate though. Liability protection. The reason you have a business and separating yourself in some type of legal entity is that liability. And then plus all the tax advantages. We talked about that as well. Taxes. Over here, you're going to have your common 15 deductions, whereas in a business, you're going to be able to write off everything. You're going to be able to write off the mileage of the mileage on your vehicle as you're driving from your house to the project to check up on it. You know, you're going to need a cell phone to make sure that the contractors are doing what they're supposed to be doing. You need internet. You need a home office. You need all these things. And so putting it through a business is going to allow you to take a deduction on those, maximize those, and then if your business and the way that it's running, you yourself get the classification of a real estate professional, then you're not going to have to deal with all those taxes. That's pretty powerful. And plus the insurance on having a business, you know, you could get a $1 million liability coverage on that for very, very, very inexpensive. So lots of benefits to having your real estate in a business. So if you are in the webinar, the mastermind, I'm going to go through some of our other common questions I had. But like I said, if you're just tuning in right now, either in Zoom, let's see, who do we got? We got Michael that's just dropped in. We got Raul. Awesome. You guys are amazing. So any questions you got on real estate, feel free to chime them in. Some of the other ones I was talking about, or some other questions that we've been getting lately are, okay, I have an LLC. Who owns that LLC? And what if I start another LLC? Do I personally own that LLC? Or what does that actually look like? So if you have one business and then you want to go to another business, and maybe this one business you have, so let's say that this is a business that you have. And what usually happens when I'm talking with folks, because usually it's about getting money for their business, is I'm a truck driver. I have a janitorial company. I want to get into real estate, and this is kind of my springboard. The business that I've been doing, so this LLC, this is my day-to-day operational business. Now I want to move into getting my first rental property. Do I put this rental property into here, or do I need to start some other type of company? This is a very common question, and it always is. It's the number one answer, but I just don't like using it. I always have a tendency to want to say, well, it depends. But the truth is, we got to figure out what your goals are. And depending on where you see yourself going is going to determine the best route. Let's say that you have a pressure washing business, and your business is bringing in $3,000 a month. Okay. And now you're thinking, hey, I want to take advantage of some of these creative strategies that you guys talk about, you know, the subject to, or a lease option, or a seller finance note, and I want to get my first rental property. And a lot of times people just want to get a property to live in themselves. They're tired of renting themselves and they want to get a property and rent it from themselves. Or they want to expand and get their first rental property. And so the question is, do you put this property into this LLC, the operation LLC? Now, there's a couple different ways to think about this. First and foremost, not in an ideal situation. You know, long-term holdings versus day-to-day operations, you always want to kind of keep separate. However, when you're starting out, you can totally do that for a little while. If there's no other assets in here and you have enough insurance to protect yourself, then you can absolutely move this property in to the LLC, having it owned by that. Now, there's a couple of things to think about in this situation. So now this property is inside this LLC. This LLC is not around yet. This is your main company. Okay, this is your main company. This is where all of your income rolls into. Now, let's see, I'll move that up a little bit so you can see that. Your main company. So as this is your main company, but now it has a rental property. Well, because if this is a rental property, now you have extra revenue coming into this business, and this could potentially increase the monthly revenue by another $1,000 a month. And then now you have to pay out, you have to pay for the mortgage potentially, or whatever the note is on that, or maybe you had enough capital and you didn't actually have to finance this property. But however you decide to structure it, you now have a company that you're doing day-to-day operations in, and you also have a property in it. Insurance is going to be extremely important. You're going to have your homeowner's insurance, but then also you're going to make sure that you have, I would recommend at least $2 million of liability. And it could only be a $150,000 house, but going from $1 million to $2 million in liability is going to be the difference between $375 a year and $475 a year. It's not that big of a difference. So I always go for having a little bit more cushion. That's going to protect you if anything were to happen. Now it changes things. Who is living in here? Are you going to be living in there? Then you don't need as much insurance. If somebody else is going to be living there, then yes, you do. Now, looking at the rental property, we also got to think about what type of business is this? So let's say that this is a pressure washing business. There's not a huge liability risk with pressure washing. I'm just going to say that. Now if you were a chiropractor, that's getting a little bit more riskier. Or let's say that you're a general contractor and you're a roofer. Now we're really looking at kind of wanting to really examine the insurance and make sure that we have enough. I would venture to say that if you're a general contractor, you do not want to put your rental property inside your operational company. So it really kind of depends on the situation. But if you are just starting out, this is okay, because this can help you grow your credibility of your business. It will increase your monthly revenue. It will allow you, if you're looking for financing, to not only have the revenue aspect of it, but the collateral aspect as well. So it's good to have assets inside your business. But when you start to progress a little bit, and if you're going to be holding this for a long period of time, you're going to want to move it over to what we like to call the long-term holdings, and setting up an LLC. And I'm just referring to LLC. This could be an S corp, but just understand that only single-member LLCs can have ownership in S corps. Typically, you'll have an S corp at the top, and that owns several other LLCs. But we're going to move this property over here. Now, how does that look? When you actually move this property out of your operations, or you just want to jump right to this point, who owns this? Do we have you at the top that owns this and this? That's a really common question. Do you own all of that? Well, what do you guys think? Throw it in the chat. Do you? Let's see. So let's see. Raul says, you are the manager of the LLC. Start another LLC. Okay, perfect. Yes. Okay, so yeah, you're the manager of these and the owner. So we're going to say, in this case, you are the managing member. So you're the member, so you have the ownership, but then you're also the manager of the property. Now in this case, do you become the manager member of this property or this company and the managing member of that property? You could do that. A lot of times what we like to do is have kind of our parent company. So this could be an S Corp or it's an LLC, and there's this threshold, typically around $45,000. That's when you start looking at filing as an S Corp. But what we like to do is me at the top or you at the top. You own your parent company. This can bring in revenue from all sorts of places. Then this rental property, what actually happens is this kind of falls underneath this company. So the ownership here changes. The ownership of this LLC is, we're going to call this LLC A and this LLC B. The ownership of this is LLC A. So there's a couple different ways to go about doing that. I like this route where this second LLC is owned by the parent company because then the revenue stream, let's get a green one, the money can flow into here. And then I usually like to have separate insurances, and the benefit, of course, of having a separate LLC is, we talk about a lot building business credit, gaining access to credit cards and things for the rental property, because let's be honest, stuff breaks in your rental properties. We have a rental property right now that we're putting a new roof on. That was an $8,000 bill that was not expected. So we have LLCB owned by the main parent company. And then everything kind of flows up to either the individual owner, or this could be, it could be a husband and wife who are owners of that. If you're going to have two, it just depends on the taxing of it. It's a lot easier to do taxes if it's just a single member LLC. But if you are both 50-50 owners, there's nothing wrong with that too. It's perfectly okay. It's really up to you and your significant other, however you want to do it. Or it could be you and a business partner. But moving forward, I don't usually recommend you and a business partner being individuals and going in on a business. So that's another common question that we get. Hey, do we go into a business as individuals together? We typically try to stay with that. If you're going to create some type of partnership LLC, ideally it's some type of entity. But we could take a look at that in just a minute. But usually I like to have these LLCs kind of pay up to a parent company, and then as you start to expand, I would actually create a separate operations LLC that would feed up to this main company. So then we move away from actually having anything in this main company except for the businesses that all feed up to it. So then you could, of course, continue to, start more companies, and those just feed into this main company. These tend to be more, they'll deal with their operations, they'll pay for their expenses, and then they pass everything up. And as you have more rental properties, doing the same thing. Typically, putting each rental in its own property, and this could be just a small multifamily property, but it's in its own LLC. I would say I typically don't want to have more than 2 properties, especially if we're looking long term. There's really no reason to have more than 2 properties in a single LLC. Now, do people do it all the time? Yeah, absolutely. But me knowing what I know about the ability to leverage these, the ability to build business credit, the ability to expand and gain access to capital, it doesn't make any sense to me. If I have 2 assets, I want to really leverage those to the max that I possibly could. All right, so that kind of hopefully answers the common question, like if I'm the individual, do I own one and then also own the other? You could. I like to kind of eventually start building everything under that one master company. And then as you move assets, as you don't have necessarily assets in there, rental properties, everything can kind of collectively go down to that one pot. All right, so in there, we're starting to talk a little bit about, I mentioned that I don't like to have, you control it. Yes, absolutely, Raul says you control it. That is so true. You know, that's really the key to everything. Own nothing, control everything. Don't pay me. I do not accept money in my name. And you shouldn't either. I do not accept anything in my name. I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. Do not pay Ray. Ray does not make money. Ray's company makes money. Joseph's company makes money. You know, me and Joseph are like, ooh, no, no, no. We don't get paid. You know, pay the companies. I don't want any, I don't want that. It's already hard enough trying not to pay taxes. I don't need any more tax liability. Okay, so let's talk about ownership. Let's say that you have this is your S Corp, this could be an S Corp, this could be an LLC, it's pretty much the same thing. Who owns this? Do you as an individual own this? Well, let's say here you are. You can own this. That is you at the top here. There you are, you're happy because you own your business. Hopefully you can see that. If you have any trouble at any time seeing any of this, Brian says, is this live? Yes, Brian, this is live. So if you have any questions, Brian, please feel free to throw them in the chat and we can get those answered for you. Thanks for being here, Brian. All right, so let's see, make sure where we're at. Okay, so you own this LLC, but like I said, you could be owning it with your significant other. You know, don't tell her I made her look funky. My wife is awesome. You could both own that, but I'll be honest, the way I have it is my wife's just a manager. This is kind of the structure of it. So who could actually own this? You, or you and your spouse, but you could own this. A S Corp or another business could own this. Another LLC could own this. Who else? Who else could own that business that you're operating? My favorite thing, a trust. That's kind of one of these powerful wealth building strategies, is where you start to actually have a trust. Let me see, it's a little hard to see, but my light's in the way. A trust. A trust is a powerful aspect of building wealth and building wealth creation, because a living revocable trust really starts to go into what the name is. It's a living entity. So me, Ray, a living revocable trust. That means that at any time I could change it if I want to. All it really is it's kind of like if you think about it, a trust is really just a binder of documents. It's filings, it's paperwork. What's going to be in here is going to be a will. There's going to be powers of attorney, medical powers of attorney. It's going to dictate and lay out what happens to the assets, the estate. Now, without going, we'll have to make a whole nother video on just what trusts are, but it's a powerful part to the whole wealth creation process. You know, let's say that you are owning it right now. You're owning your LLC. You're the owner. Well, eventually, as you start to build assets, you're going to want to convert this into a trust, which is another type of entity, and take you out of the equation. And so your business, you eventually have owned by the trust. Now you are still over here as a what? As a manager. You're always going to be a manager of your business, unless you want to give up, control to somebody else. But you're going to be a manager of this. You're no longer going to be the member. You, however, are going to be at the bottom line of everything in that trust. But the benefit of doing this is, heaven forbid, something happens to you and God decides to take you home early. You know, it wasn't planned on, but this does not go away. Just because you have kind of converted yourself doesn't mean that, and I can't find a marker that works. Doesn't mean, hey, there we go. Doesn't mean that this trust goes away. So a trust is living. It's a living, breathing creature, which because of that, you actually need to fund a trust. A trust is only as good as the items that are inside of it. So you have to actually change the documentation of your business being owned by the trust. The bank account has to be in the trust's name. Your property, if you have a house, your property is still up for grabs, basically, to say the least, until your house is in the trust. Now, it just depends on how many family members you have, if you have several children, whatever that picture looks like, you should, at the very least, always have a will. But if you have a trust, it has a will inside of it, and it dictates everything that happens. You're going to have assigned somebody that basically is going to be somebody who is going to execute the trust. Somebody that you trust controls your trust. Now, what happens when, say, you pass away? Well, the business still stays the way it is. Now, you may have a provision in this. If, for example, you are no longer the manager, then there could be a potential buyout that takes place. But if you're the only member, your family can now take control of the business. Let's say that you were leaving the business to the kids. Well, it doesn't have to go through probate. Everything is already laid out there. You have the documentation you need, and whoever has, those documents in the right really can now act on your behalf because you're no longer around, or you're unable to act for yourself. And so this is a powerful thing. If you have thought about a trust, go get one. You really need to have one set up, because if you have children, if you have assets, if you have, especially if you're up there in age, let's say that you're retired and you've been thinking about, hey, I'm trying to make sure that, if something happens to me in the next 10 years, 20 years, that everybody is kind of knows what's going to happen. I'll tell you what, for somebody who had a parent that passed away unexpectedly, and when I say unexpectedly, it's like, thought you were going to be here for years, and then all of a sudden something happens, and then within a few weeks you're gone. It's like, holy smokes. But my dad, what he had in there was a trust. He had his house in there. He had his, he didn't have like a whole lot of money, but it's like he had a car and things like that. And it was clear when you have 6 children, that's a nightmare waiting to happen, especially when there's 6 kids involved and trying to figure out what happens with what. But since he had already met with an attorney, he had sit down and really planned it out. He's like, okay, I want this, this, and this to happen. Now it's all in paper. It eliminates any type of arguing. Yeah, are people still going to be upset or whatever? Maybe. It just happens when there's that many people involved. But it eliminates the stress on the family members. I mean, of course, it's, you're gone, so it doesn't really matter. But, it's going to alleviate some stress for them because they have a clear path of what you want to do. And a lot of times we avoid talking about these things because, it's kind of doom and gloom, and we don't want to think about that. But it's one of these things that as you become a real estate investor, as you become a business owner, we just have to be able to talk about these things. It's one of those things just like what everybody else doesn't want to talk about, politics. It seems like today, if you bring up the word politics, somebody's going to yell at you. Religion, that's always a hot topic, and how much money you make. But what I have found is all the business owners that I associate with, what I relate to, whether or not we have the same beliefs, whether we believe in the same political vision, we have the same religious beliefs, whatever it is, but I've found that business owners think differently. And most likely you're on this channel because you think differently too. You're able to have productive conversations. And that's what we do here at Wise Guys in Ties. We have productive conversations. We talk about wealth creation, wealth building, how to make sure that you're protecting your assets. Sorry. Yeah, that's the little kid in me that has issues like that. But trust, it's a powerful aspect of owning this, you as a person. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about was that somebody was asking me earlier is, I have a couple partners. Do we individually go into this? Once again, what is this context? I got to really know the context and able to make a proper decision on what is taking place. There's no one size fits all except for insurance. You should always have insurance no matter what the situation. That's kind of, always make sure you're insured. Okay, LLC. Let's talk about that. The question was, I want to go into business with someone else that is not my significant other. So here I am, and here's my buddy. So actually here we'll go you, and this is your buddy. Buddy. Okay, so what do? Do we come in as individuals? Like I said, nobody's going to stop you. You totally can. I mean, I might try to stop you, but what are we trying to accomplish here? Is this a short-term joint venture? But I mean, if we're going to be actually going through the effort of creating an LLC, typically don't really recommend it. Don't recommend it. A lot of different reasons, but there's a lot of benefits to having your own business. It gets a little complicated when you have other people and you're individually owned. I see it all the time. There's actually nothing wrong with it, but it's not ideal. What happens is, basically income comes out of here and you each get paid. Nothing wrong with that. That's what it normally happens. Okay? Individual. Why is that such a problem, Ray? Well, it gets a little tricky on a lot of aspects. I don't like it because it's not ideal. Well, how do I want to explain this? I want to explain this in a way that there's just more effective ways to do this. If you're going to be making money in a business, run it through a business or some type of separate entity. It really goes down to taxes and liability protection. So instead of you receiving these funds, have a business receive them. And if it's not going to be a business, have your trust, a separate entity, being able to receive these. You got to think about things like if this business grows and somebody needs to get bought out. If this business grows, let's see, I mean, you always got to think about these things, but what happens if, your buddy and you don't get along? What happens if your buddy gets what if he gets a divorce? What's going to happen to your business? He is a direct owner in this company. And so I could go down a whole list of reasons why we shouldn't, but like what we talked about earlier, much better solution to this. You each have your own little businesses, and that will solve a lot of these problems. You each have your own little LLCs that own this, because that's the other benefit. If you're going to be in business, you're going to be creating things, you may end up having, something over here. Let's see, shouldn't write an LLC, but let's say that, for example, something that happens, it happened one time last year. So there's always little opportunities and things that pop up. So I had my trainer, my what do you call it? Personal trainer. My personal trainer. My personal trainer had this vehicle, and as she was pulling into, it was a Honda Pilot? Honda Pilot. And so, sorry, that wasn't a Honda CRV, a smaller little SUV. And I think it was it was just a couple of years old. It was 2000 something. I can't remember now because it was so long ago. But she was pulling in her driveway, and a bolt fell off. The control arm fell off. So now there's this busted up car. Okay, she's like, oh, I gotta sell it. It needs work. And Ray can't draw cars. It needs work. I'm gonna go get a new car. My husband said he wants to get me a new car. Tired of this thing. Had it for 6-7 years. The whole front end fell off. And I'm like, well, thankfully it was in your driveway. What happens if that happened on the freeway? Would have been a disaster. So she said, I asked her how much they were going to give it to her at the dealership. She said they were going to give me $900. And I thought to myself, because before I got into flipping houses, I'd flip cars. So I was like, $900, I'll pay you $1,000. Heck, yeah. And I was like, I'll have it picked up today. So I was like, I'll pay you $1,000, $100 more. And I'll have, my AAA tow truck driver come pick it up today. And I'll take it over to my mechanic, because it's all about relationships. If you don't have a good mechanic, it's something you're just going to need in life. And so my mechanic, he now loves me because I keep sending more and more people to him, just like, the AC guys and everybody else we deal with. I keep sending them more business, so our prices keep going down and down. So what it was is the front control arm was bent, and there's some other stuff that needed to happen. But I already paid for AAA. So I purchased this thing for $1,000, had AAA go pick it up, take it down to the shop. They needed to put a new battery in it and fix the control arm, put it back together basically, and it cost just under $350 to do that. So I'm now into this car for $1,350. And you know what I did? I put it on Facebook, and I sold it in like a week for $4,500. So I mean, we could do the math there. I get paid $4,500. Then we subtract. We do the math out. So that leaves really like $3,150. Okay, it's not a bad return. Can you see that? You can't really see it. But do I want to take that money? I don't want to take that money. I'm going to have this money flow into the business. I want to do that. This is a separate transaction. I do not flip cars anymore. But it was an opportunity that came up. But I do not want to be taking $3,150 in my name. I do not want to be doing that. No, sorry, Bob. And so, boom, that's going to go to the business. And so what's going to be able to be deducted? My AAA, because I used it for business. The $350 repair, the title and registration. In this case, I didn't really do any of the title registration stuff. You may have to in your state. I think I forgot. We're going to play that card on that. But, selling it off. And so if you have a business, no matter what you're doing, if you are just in life and you're not even sure what you're going to end up doing, you have a regular day job, you should already have a business, unless you just plan on never building wealth. I don't think you came across this channel if you were in that mindset. But if you don't have a business, getting your business up and running, because you never know the opportunities that are going to come up to you. And there's a lot of really great strategies for, let's say that you want to start a business. I mean, you can get an LLC rolling. You may, it's kind of arguable if you should start it or not. I always think yes, because you can be in startup mode for like 3 years. And if you're building business credit, you could start to use things that you already need. And, I don't have time to go into all the business ideas. Joseph and I regularly talk about all of the different businesses you could start. And if you have any questions about that, or you're not sure where to start, we'll do that. Maybe next week we'll talk about, taking some ideas, what type of business you could start. We do it quite regularly. Maybe once a month we end up going through some real good examples of, hey, what are some businesses that you could start? But yeah, let's see. Anybody have any questions right now? Script trial. Okay. So the reason I like always having a business ready and in place is you just don't know what you're going to run into. And you got to start making some money. If you have a W-2 job, you got to start planning on how you're going to get away from that job. All right. Perfect. Okay. So, another question that I had from 2 different people this week alone was, I want to get into real estate investing. And I have my house. How can I turn my house into a rental property? And is it possible for me to rent my property from myself? It's a great question, actually. So let's say that you are here and you want to start a business. So in a real estate investing business, what do you have to work with? Well, one common question that I get is, I have a house. I have a mortgage, and it usually starts with, I'm trying to get this mortgage paid off so I can get involved into real estate investing. But what could we do? Are there some actual options here? One, I like to see who is on the ownership. So there's a few things that are important. The deed. Now, the deed. Who is on the property? Is it just you? Or is it, you and your wife? Or, if you're watching this and you have a husband, who's on here? Is it both of you? Or is it one person? That's going to kind of change things slightly. Let's say that it's both of you. Well, then both of you collectively, both you and your wife, would want to start the LLC and be equal owners, want to own this thing equally. Almost every loan situation, almost. Now, of course, I always recommend, make sure that you've read your contracts and you understand if this is going to be a quote-unquote prohibited transaction. But most of the time, I would easily say most of the time, if you have a loan on this house, and this is an FHA, a VA conventional loan, and who is on that loan is also the same ownership in the business, the same percentage of ownership, nothing has actually changed, then if those requirements are met, then there is no issues changing the ownership of the property to the company. Okay. Now you're maybe thinking, why would I do that? How did I do that? Brand new business. So the property is no longer owned by you. It's owned by your business that you in turn own. Now, like I said before, if it's you and your wife that own your business, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. You and your wife don't need to have separate companies and things like that. It's totally okay to do this way. But what's important to understand is there's 2 parts to a house with a mortgage. There is the deed, which right here we're going to put the deed. And then there's the loan. And so the money side over here, and I'll write loan. If you haven't heard us talk about the subject to real estate strategy, this is very similar, but almost doing it with yourself. But one huge advantage, as long as the ownership has not changed, and it's just moving to a different entity that you own. This is okay to move the house to a company, move a house to a trust. This is why this ends up being okay. Because it doesn't matter if you're moving to an LLC that's owned by a trust or you're moving it directly to a trust, that's okay. But what you can do with it once it's there is a big advantage. But did the LLC own the debt now? This is tricky. It's a little interesting here. The loan has not changed. The loan is still attached to the property, and the 2 of you still have your social security numbers on that loan, especially if it's a conventional FHA loan, you still have the personal debt liability. So the loan is here, it's under your name. The loan is still collateralized by the deed, there's a lien against the house. So the loan has a lien, it has the rights to this house. Your company owns the equity of the house. You're kind of out of the picture, except for you're the ultimate owner of everything. But as far as this house in the company, that's an operation. You being on the loan, that's a separate thing. But this is where the money needs to come from the business. Let's do this. The money to pay the loan comes from the business. So the loan is now getting paid by your business. You no longer are directly paying the loan. Now, there's a couple of different ways to think about this. Let's say that you have outside revenue coming into this business. Outside money, outside funds. So you have some type of operational business that brings in revenue. So something more than just this one property. Money comes into here. The business owns that property. The business needs to maintain that property. And we'll talk about how you fit into this in a minute, but money in the business can go to maintaining this property, fixing it up, washer and dryer, water heater, the roof. These are business expenses because the business owns this. The business needs to pay for that loan because that's the debt on the property. Now, how they go about paying that is where you can kind of be a little bit creative. Are you going to rent that property from yourself? Is your property going to be provided to its managers as housing? Something to think about. There's pros and cons with each situation. Don't have a whole bunch, that'll have to be a whole nother training itself, the pros and cons between renting from yourself. But let's say that you have no outside income coming into this business. You both have a regular job. Well, this business has to pay the debt somehow. So you can potentially put money into this and you're contributing money into your business. Those are like business contributions. And then that way the business is able to pay it. You could do this with your house and then go buy another house, turn this into a rental, and then that way it gets paid that way. There's a lot of different ways you could do this, but if it's you wanting to move your property into an LLC, there's two major ways you can pay for it. Through the income that comes through other resources or sources of this business's doings, or you are going to be contributing funds and investing into your own business, which is totally doable. So that's one way to actually move the house into its own company. Now, why do we like to do that? Well, we talk regularly about business credit. So if you're not familiar, business credit. You need three major things in order to fully go out there and get some massive SBA loans and really flourish in the business world. You need cash flow, you need collateral, and you need credit. However, you can get funding when you just have one of those. So if you just have credit, there's money out there. If you just have collateral, there's money out there. Or you have cash flow, there's money out there. But when you have business credit, you can start to build wealth through leverage. And business credit is powerful because you over here have your own credit. But if this is going to turn into, a wealth creation strategy of investing in real estate, building rental properties, you might as well start here because you can start with Home Depot cards. You can start with Amazon cards, Lowe's, office supplies, Home Depot, cleaning materials, things like that. Things that you're already going to use for your household, you can turn into really like a credit building machine because instead of you going to Costco to buy paper towels, you can order paper towels through your business' line of credit and start with like a vendor credit or a store card. Order some stuff that you need instead of you actually getting paid at your job and going over to Home Depot and using your money, get a pro card. Within the first week, we can help you get a pro card to go buy stuff at Home Depot. Now, in the very beginning, it's not going to be revolving, so you're going to have it paid back within 30 days anyway. But it's the movement of money, and when you start to understand that making your money more than once. Where is it? I got it around here somewhere. Some of you don't even know that this is out yet. Where is it? I can't find it. It's around here somewhere. I got a copy of it. Anyway, Joseph just came out with his new book, The Credit Banking, in the Search for the Lost American Dream. This book is powerful, talking about how to get your debt paid down. It's crucial to your success, how to get that rapidly paid down. So intermixing your business, putting your residence in a company, growing your credit, because then guess what? 2 years down the line from now, all of a sudden you have an asset, you've got a business bank account, you have credit built, and now you can literally go out there and buy another one without even using yourself. And get this, if you use yourself, just go buy two. Your business buys one and you buy one. Doubling the power of your leverage and buyability. Is that even a word? Buyability? If it isn't, I'm going to trademark it. That's a Rayism. Buyability. But, man, see, this is what ends up happening. I just started talking. Business credit always flows down to everything. That's why everything that we do at Wise Guys and Ties, it all works together. None of this is like separated into pockets. I don't even know what word I'm trying to say. Compartmentalized or something like that. I can't speak today. Need some water. But debt pay down combined with business credit, combined with real estate, that's what the wealthy understand, folks. That's what they understand. All right. So, but the mortgage is still in your name. Yes. So Raul said, is the mortgage still in your name? Yes, absolutely. Like, this is Joe Smith. That's my fictitious name, Joe Smith. Just kidding. It's like, my name is Ronaldo Fleming. I don't even know if maybe there's 4 other Ronaldo Flemings maybe in the world, possibly, if that. I don't know. It's a pretty unique setup. But there's only 100,000 Joseph Smiths. So Joseph's got a little bit of a tricky name there. But, okay, so your name is on the loan, along with your wife, or if it's just you. And then, the loan, that doesn't change. So, Raul, the loan does not change. The loan is still in your name. But the deed, so you would go through, I recommend going through a title company, having them go through the process of recording the property into the new name. Now, you want to make sure you're working with a good title company that understands this. Not all title companies are created equally. I work with Fidelity National Title. So whether you're in Hawaii, or you're in Florida, or you're in New York, or Washington, wherever you're doing real estate, I could do real estate as well. So that's what's important with not only having a national-wide connection and using a reputable title company like Fidelity, but also having one of the best escrow officers in the world. So her name is Nadine Rolette, and she's based out of here in Tucson, but she's absolutely amazing. But she can help you no matter where you're at. So if you need help and you need to get plugged into a title company, well, because what happens if we all start working with the same people? Then we start to all get the discounts. That's what it's all about, folks. So as you really start your journey with wanting to get into real estate investing, reach out to us. That's what we're here for. Joseph says just sometimes I end up talking too much. I give away a little bit too much. But each and every week, actually, we're going to try this for a little bit. We're going to talk about masterminding on real estate. So if you have questions on what you're facing in real estate, maybe it has something to do with the acquisition, maybe it has something to do with the structure, maybe you have some questions on capital raising, whatever it is, I recommend you submit those to us. You can email them over to us at, just send it over to Ray at wiseguysandties.com. So that's where you can always reach me. If you want to send in some information, you can always go to our website and throw it in the chat box there. But if you have any questions, email them over to Ray, that's R-E-Y, at wiseguysinties.com. And we're going to start doing some masterminding on situations, because that's what we're here for, folks. We're here to help you out, figure out where you're going to go. And so maybe you have some questions on a property that you're dealing with. Let's analyze it. Let's figure it out. Maybe you have some questions on a deal and a potential deal that you're looking at. Or maybe you're interested in how to actually make some offers on some prospective properties. You know, I've spent the last 5 years with Joseph learning how to craft offers, how to buy houses at auction, how to navigate foreclosures, short sales, you know, seller finance notes. We do it each and every day. Like I said, I'm just a beginning investor, but I would say that I am, I'd say an intermediate investor. There's still a lot I don't know, but if I don't know, I at least know somebody who knows it. So our goal now for next week is to have some new questions that we can answer for you live right here on YouTube and our Zoom. But just making sure there's no other questions. But it is a good hour that I got to hang out with you folks today. And like I said, submit your questions or just come back so you can continue to expand your mind. My name is Ray Fleming with the Wise Guys in Ties. My partner Joseph Smith and I are committed to your success, whether it be in real estate investing, debt pay down, or the maximizing the amount of funding you can get for your business. Let us help you so you can go out there and fulfill your God-given purpose. I want to thank you all for being here tonight. Good night, and God bless.